Hello, everyone. My name is Corey Kelly. I'm the CEO here at Legal Karma. Legal Karma is an automation tool for anyone who wants to build templates out of complex documents. Today, we're going to look at our substitution tool. When thinking about the substitution tool, think of fill in the blank, as any question responses will substitute into the document. Let's jump in. So once you've logged in and you've uploaded your document, you're ready to get started with the substitution tool, which is this first tool here at the top of the left-hand side. But before you can even get started with the substitution tool, you have to understand how Legal Karma performs automations. The way to automate things in Legal Karma is through this action that we call binding. You bind no matter what tool you're using, whether it's the substitution, the condition, or the looping questions tool. To perform a binding, simply highlight an element of the document and then right-click it. The data validation that displays will depend on the tool that you're in. Okay, so now that you understand binding, let's talk about the substitution tool or the fill-in-the-blank tool. In this document, an asset purchase agreement between a purchaser and a seller, obviously, the first thing we want to automate are what's the name of the purchaser and what's the name of the seller. So I'll highlight the name of the purchaser, and then all I have to do is right-click. I can choose from different data validations. In this case, I want short response. And then I'll type in the name of the question. What is the name of the purchaser? I can also choose to make this response numbers only. We won't do that for this one, but we'll do that one a little bit later. And then we'll do it again for the seller. Short response. What is the name of the seller? Now, obviously, we don't want to do a short, open-ended response for a date because we want the data validation to be exactly as we expect it to be. So that's why we have the date substitution tool. So you'll highlight the date, select date. What is the date this contract should go into effect? And then you'll select the date format that you prefer. In this case, we want this one. And then you can choose to autofill the date when the document is generated, or you can even set up guardrails for when someone can select a date. We want this one to be open-ended. So no matter what the user types in, it will display the date like this. Now we're starting to get into immediately some of the data fields we've already automated. For example, it's asking the date again. And so let's highlight the date. But instead of having to do a new date question, we can just select existing question. What is the date this contract should go into effect? Click that. And now, anytime this question has been answered, it will drop that response into there. Okay, so we've automated the names and the dates. And here we can quickly go through and pick the names of the purchaser and that name of the seller. So we're binding this document really quickly now. But what happens when we want to ask what the entity type is, but we don't want to let them just answer with anything? We want to give them a fixed amount of responses. This is what the multiple question tool is for. So in this question, we'll ask, what is the entity type of the seller? And we'll give them some options. Are they an individual, a corporation, or a limited liability company? We'll make this for question required, and we won't let them select multiple options. Okay, so we've talked about short response, multiple choice dates. All of those are very straightforward. Now let's look at a nuanced use case. What happens when you want the application to do math for you, and you also need more interesting things like dollar format, and you need the responses to numbers to actually spell out in words? We handle all of this. But the first thing that we need to do to automate this section of the consideration is we need to actually just know what is the amount being paid. So we're just going to add an unbound question. So we'll do short response. What is the amount of consideration paid to the seller? And we'll select numbers only. So now the user, whenever they answer this, they will only be allowed to type in numbers. And so this is question 5. This is important. You'll see in just a moment. So now in part A of Article 5, we need to know the amount of the total consideration. So let's highlight the amount of the actual dollar amount in numbers that they want to substitute into the document. And we'll do a calculated question. Calculated questions can run not only any sort of PEMDAS equation, parentheses, exponents, multiply, and divide, but it can also handle interesting functions. For example, like dollar format. Now, rather than make you guys watch me set this up, I'm going to set it up quickly and then show you the finished product. Okay, so we've actually been able to automate this entire section by only asking one question to the client using our calculation tool. First, we just asked, how much is being paid? And then we used our calculation dollar format to read that amount and spell that out in dollar format. And then we used our function number to words, which will read this amount and actually spell it out exactly like it should be in English. And then we run that again for 75% of the cost, number to words, and then run it again for 25% of the cost, number to words. By only answering one question, we were able to automate this entire section. Now, calculated questions are by far the most advanced use case of Legal Karma. So don't worry if it feels a little overwhelming at first. And there's a link in the description of this video of all of the different functions that you can use. Okay, the last thing we need to look at is the alternative language block tool within substitutions. And for this one, I'm actually going to use a will and a trust because this comes up all of the time in these documents. And it happens right here. Are they married? And if they are, how does their partner identify with their gender pronouns? How are we going to know if they're married to a wife? And then furthermore, how are we going to make sure that there's always the correct grammar with ownership, singular, etc.? The easy answer is we just use our alternative language block tool. Let's check it out. So the first thing that you do is you create a multiple choice question. So this is not bound to anything. This is just information needed from the client. Okay, so what we're going to ask the client is, does their spouse identify as a man, a woman, or non-gender conforming? Once we have that information captured, we can now go to the section where we need to automate the alternative grammar. So we'll right-click, we'll click alternative, we'll type in spouse ownership because that's the kind we need for this substitution. It's going to only show the multiple choice questions that have been pre-written. And now here we can see the responses to this multiple choice question have populated here. And so if it's man, we want it to say husbands. It's woman, we want it to say wives. It's non-gender conforming, we want it to say partners. And this is all for ownership, but you'll see it'll happen here again. I have blank children with my wife or husband or partner. So now we'll just use another alternative language block to spouse, singular. Select this question again. It's going to populate those again. And this time we'll just type in husband, wife, partner. Now, once the client has answered one time, are you married to a man, a woman, or someone who's non-gender conforming? It's going to correctly put in all of the pronouns into this document for their spouse. So you can do this again for the kids and for anyone else. And that's alternative language blocks. We have covered so much in the last few minutes, and I understand if it can be overwhelming. We covered short response, dates, multiple choice. We got into the complexities and power of the calculation tool, how to automate pronouns and grammar using the alternative language blocks. It's a lot to take in, and we understand we have an entire company built around this competency. If you ever need help in any way, you can always reach us at hello@legalkarma.io. And always keep an eye on our resources page at legalkarma.io/resources. That's all for this video. Thanks for tuning in.